As a reminder, whenever we're talking about these muscle contractions, unless otherwise stated, we're probably talking about skeletal muscles. They're going to be attached to bone to move bones, and that's why they're called skeletal muscles. There's two endings to the muscle. If it's going to move bones around, it has to bind to and attach to bones. One is referred to as the origin, and one is referred to as the insertion. And you will find this defined as the origin is the non-moving bone and the insertion is the moving bone. Put your arm down on the table in a 90-degree angle, flex your arm. Your humerus didn't move, your forearm did. So your humerus, specifically your ulna did, your humerus would be considered where the brachialis muscle is, when that contracts, would be considered the origin of the brachialis, and the insertion would be your ulna. For the brachialis would be your ulna. Now, this is important for me to test you on because this is the type of framework that stuff like a lot of standardized testing you might be asked to do in the future will put it. A lot of people still think in these terms. A lot of, the nurses that you'll work with and physical therapists who may be thinking in these terms. From a medical standpoint, it's academic. Because, okay, so you take your arm and you put it at a 90-degree angle, but it's pushed away from you and you bend. Both of those bones move. So which is the origin and which is the insertion? It kind of doesn't matter because the contraction of the muscle will pull on both bones equally. It's just which bone is being held in place more by other muscles than the other end. So in practice, I won't really ask you too much about origin and insertion because I kind of don't care. But you do need to know these terms for standardized testing and for your professional careers in the future, just how other people talk about this stuff, and therefore I kind of have to put it on the test in some small amount. Bones can attach to muscle by either direct or indirect attachment. Direct attachment of muscle to bone, and remember, it's going to be attaching by way of its tendon. The muscle belly itself doesn't touch bone. The tendon is going to touch the bone. If it's a direct attachment, then what you're going to have is direct contact between the tendon and the epimysium. The epimysium of the tendon with the periosteum of the bone, or the perichondrium if it's cartilage, but really mostly we're talking about periosteum. So you have bone, and then it has its periosteum here, fibrous periosteum, because it's the outsidemost part, and that's the part we care about right now. And then you have muscle and tendon, and you have the epimysium, the tendon sheath, and those are just going to kind of merge together. So that effectively in here, remember the outside, the epimysium, the tendon sheath, is dense irregular connective tissue. The fibrous perichondrium is dense irregular connective tissue. Once they touch, they kind of just blend into each other. An indirect attachment is where the epimysium and other connective tissue situations on the muscle will merge into the aponeurosis, will merge from the tendon into like an aponeurosis. So you have a full merging of the two into the aponeurosis. Tendons anchor to periosteum or perichondrium or to the fascia of other muscles. You can have an insertion into other muscles. Those are also considered indirect attachments. Those are the most common ones that you're going to think about. And I just want to remind you too, the tendons are dense and tough. They take up a little space, they have a ton of strength, and so they're good because of this for helping to stabilize, and this tissue is good for surrounding joints for stability. Muscles are never completely relaxed. We've talked about how an electrical stimulus has to be sent to a muscle fiber in order for it to contract. Your body is doing that all the time at really low levels and stimulating muscle fibers at random, but like 1 or 2 in any given muscle at a time, or some small number in any given muscle at a time, so that they're never completely relaxed. And this is important because if your muscles were all truly completely relaxed, your muscles would be incapable of keeping your skeleton upright. or from collapsing on itself, basically. So you always need to have some small degree of contraction happening in your muscles all the time, just to preserve muscle tone. Use it or lose it. If you don't have some contraction going on, you're just going to atrophy. Your body likes to do that. It doesn't like to waste energy. And it's also going to help you preserve your posture. This also helps preserve joint stability. If you didn't have some muscles contracting all the time, and then you sent a sudden jerk into your shoulder to move it, if there wasn't some tension there in the first place, your shoulder would just dislocate every time. And you can't have that, right? So it's going to help maintain posture, joint stability, and your upright, and to prevent atrophy.